Manchester United winning the Manchester Derby was in itself in many ways newsworthy because, well, most people were expecting this to be a match that City won and therefore ramped up the pressure on Arsenal, who are currently sitting atop the Premier League table. However, Manchester United clearly had other plans and, more importantly, were able to not just get away with some points, but all three of them. That being said, there was one very controversial moment that came about when, of course, Manchester United scored their equalizer, because at first Marcus Rashford was flagged for being offside when Bruno Fernandes scored the equalizing goal. However, a quick chat between the referee and his linesman led to that decision being overturned and the goal was awarded to United. Naturally, this was something that most people ended up thinking about, whether or not this was well within the rules, what is the legality, and should the goal have actually been allowed to stand in the first place. So in order to figure out whether or not that's exactly the case, well, that's what we are here to talk about and see whether or not this was a goal that should have stood, or more importantly, been allowed to stand under the wording of the current rules. Now, before we go into the rules and how it is that they're spelled out, it is worth noting that there is, at least in the newer edition of the offside rules, there's a lot of ambiguity, and that, in short, is what has led to the confusion that has come about in this particular instance. Now, even when I had to explain, when I'm going to explain this to you, as you can see the offside rule on your screen, the offside rule actually has a lot more portions than this, but I've picked out the two more pertinent or relevant rules to this particular instance. The first is when it comes to the offside rule, a player is flagged offside when they're interfering with the play by playing or touching a ball passed or touched by a teammate, and when they are clearly attempting to play a ball which is close when this action impacts on an opponent. Now, if you go by the first line where you're talking about interfering with play by playing or touching a ball passed or touched by a teammate, by that metric, Marcus Rashford was not offside, because he did actually, he was involved in the play, but he didn't touch the ball. So if he had to touch the ball at any given point of time, he would have been flagged quite easily offside. But if you're looking at the second side of things, where it says clearly attempting to play a ball which is close when this action impacts on an opponent, if you go by that, then there's a very easy case to be made for Rashford being offside, because he was very much involved in the play, and in fact most players, if not everyone, was expecting him to receive the through ball that Casemiro played over the defense, and he didn't. And the fact that he left it and then let Fernandes shoot it was in essence one of the longest dummies that you would have seen play out in live football. In fact, the fact is that he may as well have been involved in the play, because he as good as shielded the ball from the other defenders, and quite understandably so, this has caused a lot of furor. So both of these, if you look at it by one metric, he is quite clearly offside, and by the other he's not, and that is where the major confusion comes in. He could very well have been ruled offside, and he could very well have not been ruled offside. But what exactly did the managers of Manchester United and City have to say about this particular incident? Now, if you look at what it is that Erik ten Hag, the Manchester United manager, had to say, he said quite clearly, he said that, look, the rules, that's a very confusing moment for the backline of the opponent. The rules say that Marcus Rashford didn't touch the ball and he wasn't interfering. Bruno Fernandes came from the back, but I can see it from the other side as well. So that part is very, very key to note. He says that, look, the rules are very confusing as they stand. And, they say that Marcus didn't touch the ball and he wasn't interfering. And the key line is where he says, but I can see it from the other side. What he's saying is that, look, I can understand why it wasn't given, but I can also understand why it is that Manchester City fans, the managers, the players are frustrated at the fact that it wasn't given, because historically there has been a precedent set that if a player is quite clearly onside or offside and is seen in anywhere close to the play or impacting the line of vision of the goalkeeper, which in this case Rashford was doing, is flagged offside instantly. This time around it was flagged offside, but after a little bit of argument and deliberation was changed back. That was the moment of controversy. In fact, that is what Pep Guardiola pointed out. He said that, look, if you're looking at the players, Rashford was offside, Bruno Fernandes is not. The question is intervening or not in the action. When one player shoots and another player is in front of the keeper and does not touch the ball, it's disallowed all the time. That last line right there is the real key and the clincher as to why it is that this was so controversial. it's disallowed all the time. In this case, however, it wasn't disallowed. The goal, in fact, technically was disallowed, but then the referees changed their minds and the goal was allowed to stand. So that really was the point of contention, is that generally speaking, when we've seen decisions like this come up, it does favor the team who are defending, because more often than not the attacker is ruled out offside in such a situation. However, in this situation he was ruled offside and then wasn't ruled offside, which is why Bruno Fernandes's goal was allowed to stand. The issue here isn't so much with the refereeing, because if you're going by the word of the law, then it's so ambiguous that really either of the conclusions that comes up in this case actually makes sense. The problem here speaks to a bigger one, and that is, of course, in the way that the law is worded. There is so much ambiguity, there's no clear-cut way in this case to take a decision. And now normally in football, there aren't that many rules, and a lot of the rules do allow for some degree of interpretation. But this particular rule, there seems to be so much leeway that if you're looking at just two parts of the rule, there does seem to be some problems. So there is an equal compelling case to be made to say that yes, Rashford's goal should have been disallowed because there's historical precedence, but there's also a part of the rules that if you go by says that look, he didn't really touch the ball, so he can't be flagged offside. Which of these is correct? Well, that just comes with the territory of rules and them being so open to interpretation. That's why this time around the goal was seen legitimately as an offside, but then overturned, because according to the rule of the law, it could be seen either way. The major issue lies there in the fact that there's that much ambiguity, and maybe, just maybe, football's lawmakers need to have a look and tighten the rule a little bit, because if you don't do that, there is very much a risk of more such instances happening in the future on this regard. But that's just how I feel about it. What do you guys think? You can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video. Then you can also go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and last but not least, download the AajTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us in this video. I hope to see you with us on more videos through the day, but for now, goodbye.